Welcome to the MLB Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Mo Nawara in the Midwest, as we still await the return of our friend Nate Weitzer, who will be back with us here in a few weeks. We've been off for a little bit with that All-Star break. Plenty to talk about as we come back tonight here on a Friday night slate. We are bringing you these videos each and every weekday of this MLB regular season, so make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us. Also want you to head to thelines.com. Got plenty of great content up there for you. Also have our great odds checker tool, so you can make sure you are shopping those lines, getting the best juice available on all of your bets. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Kicking things off, we only have evening time games here, depending on where you are. Obviously, 3:40 p.m. for me on the West Coast, but that kicks off with Adam Wainwright and the Cards in Cincinnati taking on Graham Ashcraft. Minus 165 for the Cards on the road there. Jaimes Taillon and Tyler Wells taking on the Yanks and Orioles taking each other on in Baltimore. Minus 155 for the Yanks in that one. We will talk about that one here for you in a sec. We've got Justin Steele on the mound for the Cubs against Kyle Gibson and the Phillies in Philadelphia. Phillies favored minus 130 on the money line there. Yu Darvish and the Pods headed to face Max Scherzer and the Mets in New York. Minus 180 for the Metropolitans at Citi Field there. Kevin Gausman and the Jays taking on Nathan Eovaldi and the Sox. Minus 125 for Gausman and the Jays on the road there. The Angels and Ohtani taking on Charlie Morton and the Braves. Minus 150 for the Braves. Shohei finally not a favorite there as the Angels continue to struggle a bit. The Rockies and Antonio, I'm never going to say it correctly, but I will give it a shot. Sensantella and Milwaukee, Corbin Burns, much easier to say, taking on the Brewers are taking on the Rockies at home. Minus 280 there for the Brew Crew. Guardians and Cal Quantrill and Lucas Giolito for the White Sox in Chicago. Minus 150 for the Sox there. Drew Rasmussen and the Rays taking on the Royals. Brad Keller in Kansas City. Minus 130 for the Rays there. Spencer Howard and the Rangers are taking on the Athletics in Oakland. Cole Irvin on the mound for the A's. Minus 115 for the Rangers there. And we still do not have a line yet on those Nats game in Arizona, as we will wait on that one. Another game we are going to touch on here, Jose Urquidy and the Stros are taking on Marco Gonzalez and the Mariners in Seattle. The Stros are minus 125 in the money line there. And the last game of the night, you've got Logan Webb and the Gigantes in LA taking on the Dodgers and Tyler Anderson. Minus 140 for the Doyers there. But as I mentioned earlier, we are going to kick things off with that Stros game as Marco Gonzalez is on the mound for the Mariners. Some reasons to probably like to fade him tonight. So tell me what you're looking at with Urquidy on the mound as well for the Stros.
I'm just looking at fading Marco Gonzalez mostly and just having a lot of trust in the healthy Astros lineup with Yordan Alvarez. He's been probably the best hitter in baseball this year. They reactivated him off the IL before yesterday's doubleheader against the Yankees. I think he only played in one of the games. I do expect him to play here. I'd be pretty surprised if he didn't. And yeah, pitching wise, I would say pretty large edge for the Astros. So Marco Gonzalez, his ERA is pretty good, 3.5, but his StatCast hates what he's doing this year. 24th percentile or worse in xWOBA, X batting average, and X slugging. So the contact quality he's allowing is not very good. His fastball is down to 87.8 mile per hour last start. He's definitely hitting the cliff fastball wise. I think you can't really get much lower than that, honestly, and still like have a job. Get the baseball by major league hitters. He basically lives off his changeup. It's a great changeup. But the Astros do hit the changeup well. It's one thing I always look at when I'm looking at a Marco Gonzalez start. How well does the other team hit the changeup? Astros are 9th versus the changeup. And yeah, just Sierra wise, like Gonzalez is almost a run worse than Urquidy. He's a Sierra beater in his career. I just think when your fastball deteriorates to this level, it's going to be really hard to keep beating your Sierra like that. We've seen this with Kyle Hendricks. Eventually, the fastball gets so bad that you just can't keep beating your Sierra to the degree you did before. Hendricks, very similar to Marco Gonzalez, just like years and years of beating his peripherals. But I just have a hard time believing he's going to keep it up with his fastball this poor. And I got minus 110 on the Astros. It's up to like minus 120 now. I still think it's good. I still think the Astros are good up to minus 130, to be honest. I had them more closer to minus 140 here. So I know that the Mariners are getting healthier in their lineup. They're getting Kyle Lewis back. I'm still not even really sure what their lineup's going to look like, to be honest. They have a couple like first base only types, Carlos Santana, some poor defenders out there, Jesse Winker, bat only guys, a lot of corner type bat only guys in the lineup. So I think their defense might take a little hit now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, they're obviously, we know the Mariners were the hottest team in baseball before the break. Obviously, I don't think they really were looking forward to the break, right? At that point, 14 in a row. But I will say also Gonzalez, while the Mariners have won 6 in a row at home as they've got this nice win streak going, Gonzalez is actually 1-4 in his last 5 home starts for the Mariners. He's been doing most of his work on the road. I know you mentioned some of those splits there too. So I do think that the slight edge, at least the slight edge, goes to Urquidy. And then I do love the offense for the Astros, who are going to continue to round into form and seem like they might be worth a futures bet right now. I'm not going to lie. They are a team that looks good in all the different metrics that you would care about for a playoff run as well, including that incredible bullpen. So we'll see how things fare for them moving forward. But let's move on to another game here that's pretty interesting. Division rivalry there. We've got the Blue Jays taking on Nathan Eovaldi and the Red Sox. And I know, let's say at everything else in a vacuum, Gausman probably a better pitcher than Eovaldi, despite some of the big wins that Eovaldi has gutted out in his career at this point. But I think this is a good moment to pounce on the Jays. We've got them at about minus 120 here, and compared to Gausman, Eovaldi is probably looking at a little bit more of a struggle against this Jays lineup. So where do you begin as you break this one down?
Yeah, this is another one I got on early enough to get the Jays like minus 110. But again, I still think there's quite a bit of room to play the Jays. I had them a much bigger favorite than this. Like you said, Gausman, he's a better pitcher than Eovaldi on a good day, probably by about half a run, I would say. But Eovaldi, I don't know if we're gonna get the best version of Eovaldi. Biggest thing is just I'm really concerned about his fastball velocity. He came off the IL for, I think, one start right before the break. 94.7 his fastball clocked at. That's about 2 miles per hour below his season average, which is a pretty big deal. That's about 3 miles per hour below where he's been the last few years, when he's basically ascended to be Boston's like ace a lot of cases. You're talking about a 3 mile per hour drop in his fastball, which is pretty big for a guy who I don't think he has the best fastball like shape, I guess, because he's always kind of got hit pretty hard. So I don't think he can really afford to lose much of his stuff. 91.2 exit velocity this year, 2.11 home runs per 9. These are, I'm sometimes inclined to like regress these home run numbers and just say they're bad luck. But with Gausman, with Eovaldi, he's always kind of been prone to home runs and loud contact. So I'm a little more inclined to believe in these issues. And yeah, the fastball velocity, I'm really worried about it. Boston's still missing Trevor Story, and still just like without Trevor Story, pretty uninspiring bottom of the lineup. So yeah, line moving this way, but I still good for a play for me. I guess I'm just always going to be higher on the Jays lineup than the market until they play like they're supposed to.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I would definitely support that, but I'm always afraid of those bats on the Jays. And like you said, that Trevor Story deal, still somewhat of a questionable move. I don't think Sox fans love it, especially with how dependent they are on him to come through in the lineup for them right now when he can't even get on the field. But let's end things here with a game where we are taking the dog as the O's are taking on those Yankees, who did lose the doubleheader there to the Stros recently. But new game. We love Tyler Wells here on this show. If you've been following at all, you know that we continue to find value with him. They are sitting now, I believe, at about plus 130 or so, where you got them. But another good opportunity here for Wells, coming in with a really nice ERA and record, and a lot of the other peripherals as well. So where do you start with this one? Obviously, this is probably a bet on Tyler Wells to handle the Yanks as much as anything, I imagine.
Yeah, definitely staying aboard the Wells train. I would say this is the weakest of the three plays here. I like the Jays and the Astros quite a bit more, but still had some value on the Orioles. this is just basically, I guess, comes down to how much you believe StatCast, because they have Wells as quite a bit of a better pitcher than Tyone this year. 3.41 xERA. Tyone's up at 3.96, which I think is about where he should be. That's a good barometer for his talent level, I believe. But yeah, even like looking at some of the other numbers, I mean, Wells has a better called strike plus whiff rate than Tyone, fewer barrels than Tyone. I think he's probably a little bit of a better pitcher than Tyone. So given they have home field and a better pitcher, I just can't get the Yankees this high of a favorite. I know their lineup is quite a bit better, but even just giving their lineup a fair amount of credit, I'm still ending up around minus like 140 or so, or rather minus 120. So yeah, I just minus 160 is too high for me. I know that. So one thing I would say, the only reason I'm a little wary of this one is the pitch type numbers are not very good for the Orioles here. Wells is pretty reliant on fastball slider. Yankees have been quite strong against those pitches. But what I would say in Wells' favor is he seems to really like get some extension or deception. I don't know what it is. I think it's probably extension because he's 6'8", but he really seems to like hitters just have a hard time picking his stuff up for whatever reason. So I think he should pitch a little better than what those pitch type numbers say he would against the Yankees. And yeah, I just, we've seen a lot of value on the Orioles. We've seen a lot of value on Wells multiple times throughout this season. And I think still a bit of value here. I would bet them down to plus 130. It's not as strong as the other plays, like I said, but still okay, I think, where it's at right now.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Tyone is definitely fooling hitters in a couple different ways this year. But at the same time, yeah, Tyler Wells right now with plus money at that high of, I do like the juice there enough to feel good about it. And those Orioles, they can, we'll see if they can continue to surprise and stay around that 500 mark. But it seems like it's been a pretty legitimate turnaround for them, especially as they start to bring up those young guys. So we'll continue to monitor their situation there. That is a super fun division in the AL East. But that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us as we are bringing you these videos each and every weekday of this MLB regular season. So until we see you next, happy betting.